What if first contact doesn't begin in the sky, but in human consciousness? What signs show that it is closer than we think? In this first part, we explore these questions. Hello, my name is Frank Harfer, and in the Akasha interviews I work as an information medium, documenting and publishing questions and answers about consciousness, humanity, and our place in the universe. With that said, let's turn to the question. Entry A, 267. What signs announce first contact? Part 1. We begin by explaining what first contact actually represents and what will happen afterward. This question cannot be answered in its entirety within a single entry, which is why this topic will consist of several parts. In the first part, we will explain what first contact is, and in the subsequent parts, we will take a closer look at specific aspects of first contact. We will reveal many details that you humans do not yet know, and we will resolve any possible concerns related to this first contact, so that it can be said, the signs are always to be evaluated positively, and first contact will represent a tremendous leap in human evolution. First contact can neither be interpreted as destructive nor as dangerous. Those who understand what first contact is and what happens during it will await it with great anticipation, because after first contact, everything always becomes better for the native species, never worse. We will once again address the frequency pattern required for first contact, so that people understand why it is of such great importance that this frequency pattern is raised at all in order for first contact to take place. Whenever humanity encounters something it does not know, it first reacts with fear, and after some time it becomes curious and tries to understand what this new thing actually is. Extraterrestrial life has not yet been discovered by you humans, even though humanity today assumes that extraterrestrial life must exist on other planets. Many efforts are being made to find the first extraterrestrial life. Some of you do not believe that humanity is the only intelligent species in the universe. But humanity does not consist only of those people who are interested in possible extraterrestrial life. Therefore, it can be said that the majority of humanity on Earth does not believe in intelligent extraterrestrial life. But if the overwhelming majority believes in extraterrestrial life, why does it not believe that this life could also be intelligent and evolutionarily and technologically superior to terrestrial humanity? Because humans can only believe what they can see. If you were able to see extraterrestrial beings, then an understanding of these life forms would also be present in everyday human life. And no one would doubt that such life forms can exist. A large number of people believe in the spiritual world, yet no one knows whether it truly exists. Why is it not the same with intelligent extraterrestrial life? Because many people already grow up with belief in the spiritual world, and their environment has already stored this belief as a frequency pattern within their frequency spectrum. We have previously explained, using the example of the scribe, how this frequency pattern for belief in the spiritual world comes into being. When adults raise their children, the frequency patterns of the adults simultaneously stimulate the frequency patterns of the children. The children will have no difficulty adopting belief in the spiritual world later in life. If children can be stimulated by the frequency patterns of adults, then adults could also stimulate one another with their frequency patterns. So why is this so much more difficult? Because adults have already developed many frequency patterns that, for example, work against the frequency pattern for acknowledging extraterrestrial life. Frequency patterns can only ever be strengthened, they never weaken again. If a person has strongly developed the frequency pattern for belief in the spiritual world, that person can hardly be convinced of the opposite. If someone has strongly developed the frequency pattern of skepticism, then the frequency patterns of the spiritual world and of skepticism work against one another, and the frequency pattern with the higher amplitude prevails. This means that the person is convinced that the spiritual world exists, but believes only what they can experience for themselves. The scribe is such a person. His skepticism is enormously developed, and we had to do a great deal to ensure that the frequency pattern for belief in the spiritual world rose higher than the comparable amplitude value of skepticism. He believes only what he can verify for himself. Verification can also occur through logic, but the scribe is very cautious even with that. Thus, it can be said that without the formation of skepticism as a frequency pattern, the scribe would be easy to convince of anything. But this is not the case with the scribe, nor with most other humans, and that is a good thing. A human must be convinced. But if there is a frequency pattern that works against the frequency pattern for acknowledging intelligent extraterrestrial life, then the frequency pattern for acknowledging extraterrestrial life must be higher in amplitude in order to prevail. It is difficult to fight against a pronounced frequency pattern, because a frequency pattern can never be weakened again. How then is it possible that human skepticism regarding intelligent extraterrestrial life is overridden by the frequency pattern for acknowledging it? This is almost impossible unless humanity as a whole develops this frequency pattern. In that case, even skeptics integrate this frequency pattern, because logic prevails. Logic states that if most people believe something, then there must be something to it. And accordingly, skeptics become more open to yielding to this frequency pattern. This happens with all topics that you humans process. Every new situation gives rise to new frequency patterns within you, so that people who are confronted with many new situations integrate many frequency patterns into their frequency spectrum. And the frequency spectrum therefore becomes increasingly rich in frequency patterns. When a human possesses many different frequency patterns, they appear extremely mature to other beings, and we would say, "This person is very wise and far-sighted." There are many such people among you, but all of you will continue to integrate new frequency patterns into your frequency spectrum throughout your entire lives, so that in old age, so to speak, everyone can be seen as far-sighted and wise. They do not only see this, they also feel the rich frequency patterns of a person. Now you know how these frequency patterns affect other people. The scribe has very strongly developed the frequency patterns for acknowledging extraterrestrial life and for the spiritual world. Through this, he stimulates all of you, just as you, through your frequency patterns, stimulate the frequency patterns of all the people you know. If people like you, who largely are convinced that intelligent extraterrestrial life exists, continually stimulate the frequency patterns of others, then one day all of humanity will be convinced, even if many people have nothing at all to do with this topic. Through logic, they will realize that there must be something to it, because so many other people are convinced of it. When this moment is reached, the first signs of the first contact will become visible. When the spiritual world recognizes this frequency pattern for acknowledging extraterrestrial life within the frequency spectrum of the entire terrestrial humanity, many beings from other planets will begin to show themselves publicly. This will happen as follows. Extraterrestrial spacecraft will appear in the firmament and remain geostationary at great altitude. You humans will be able to see with the naked eye that something is there, but only with amateur telescopes will you be able to recognize that extraterrestrial spacecraft are stationed there. The size of these spacecraft is so enormous that no one will believe that any nation on Earth could have built them. When these spacecraft appear, nothing else will happen for a long time, because humanity is only meant to see that something extraordinary is standing in the sky. These spacecraft will be visible from every inhabited place on Earth. Countless spacecraft will come to you, but from any given position on Earth, a person will usually be able to see only one spacecraft. The spacecraft will differ from one another, and we will already reveal this. Spacecraft will also be visible that are operated by non-human species. However, these spacecraft will only remain in the sky and will not move further. For a long time, nothing else will be visible except these spacecraft. When the first phase has passed and people have grown accustomed to the sight, movement will be seen around these spacecraft. Many small transport flights will be carried out by the extraterrestrial beings from one spacecraft to another. Throughout this entire time, there will be no official contact with Earth's governments. No one knows exactly who these beings in the spacecraft are or what they want, but many will speculate that this must be first contact. Your governments will have to admit that they had previously already seen signs of intelligent extraterrestrial life, but they will still withhold much information in order to place themselves in a better starting position than other nations. Since the appearance of the spacecraft, humanity will know hardly any other topic, and the focus of people will shift away from everyday concerns toward the extraterrestrials, because no one will any longer doubt that extraterrestrial life forms must be operating these spacecraft. The spacecraft are positioned at an altitude that can never be reached by aircraft, so governments are hardly able to obtain information from the visitors beyond visual observations. People want to know who these beings are. So much is recited from old stories without even being able to remotely explain who they are. The visitors will maintain telepathic contacts in order to introduce themselves. Many individuals will experience mental visits, and anyone who has ever been connected with a spiritual being knows what we are talking about. These individuals will make themselves known and go public with their information, and much will be explained. We are already preparing you for this today because your frequency patterns will then ensure that this information can be accepted. Many people will be frightened at first, but this will quickly subside. One day, the large spacecraft will gradually descend, and many have long awaited this moment. By this, we truly mean terrestrial humanity, because it wants to be more informed. It wants something to change, because its curiosity has increased immeasurably, and the descent announces this change. Many people will now believe and can no longer endure living under these conditions when they know that first contact will change many things for the better. After some time, the spacecraft will descend far enough to be clearly visible to the naked eye. The altitude will still be considerable, and air traffic will not be affected in any way. Transport flights between these spacecraft will increase, and everyone will notice these changes. There will still have been no official contact with governments, but let us tell you this. Many already know from the appearance of the first spacecraft that first contact is imminent. No nation will dare to act militarily against this, because even the most advanced nation recognizes that this would make no sense at all. Mental contacts with humans will now be followed by physical encounters, but these will not take place in public. Human-looking extraterrestrial beings will meet with people on Earth, and some will also visit the spacecraft in order to report about it later. The first close encounters will be very emotional because humans have been waiting for this for a very long time. Many stories will circulate, and people will imagine many things, because this prevailing topic, these extraterrestrial spacecraft, will have dominated for a long time. Everyone wants to be able to say something about it, but only very few will actually have had a physical encounter with extraterrestrials. People would like to board these spacecraft because they expect much from it, and many will be disappointed that this does not happen. But like everything else, first contact is regulated down to the smallest detail, and humans are taken aboard such spacecraft only in absolute exceptional cases. Many stories will be written describing such physical contact, but most of these contacts will never have taken place. So these stories will merely repeat what others have already written. When the stories become increasingly unbelievable, no one should take them seriously, because physical contact is always carried out very carefully, and no one is meant to be frightened. Much will then be visible in your sky that the scribe already dreamed of years ago, and which we showed him on the dream stage regarding first contact. At that time they were only strange dreams. Today the scribe knows what they mean. He saw many different spacecraft visible in the sky day and night, flying in formations. Small and large spacecraft will be clearly visible in the sky, but never threateningly low, and at first, they will also not stop or land. Rather, as on your highways, many corridors in the air will be used to fly over you in formation. Again and again, new spacecraft will be seen, which will be widely discussed by people. Now a time begins in which nations will end all acts of war, because everyone will be interested only in this topic, and all conflicts will no longer be supported by the public. When the day of the official first contact arrives, every act of war will stop immediately, because not a single person will want to concern themselves with any kind of national disputes. Nothing will be more important than the official first contact. This entry, along with many others, is available on my website. The content is published in German, but modern browsers make translation straightforward. You'll find a direct link to this blog entry and further helpful information in the video description.